Hi, it's Nick from the Run Testers, and in this video we're going to be comparing the Nike Vaporfly NEXT % original versus the Nike Vaporfly NEXT % 2. We'll start by looking at the stats and a few kind of key differences between the shoes. The first is the price. The Vaporfly 2 is cheaper than the original. It comes in at $209.95 in the UK or $225 in the US, whereas the original was £240 in the UK, $250 in the US. They both have the same drop, which is 8mm from heel to toe. Obviously they've got that big stack, which is pushing right up to the World Athletics limit of 40mm. And then when it comes to the weight, actually the new shoe is slightly heavier than the old shoe for me. The original Vaporfly NEXT was 198 grams, just under 7 ounces in my UK size 9, whereas the new one is 206 grams or 7.3 ounces in the same size. So yeah, the changes made have made the shoe very slightly heavier, but not really something that's noticeable to me anyway on the run. Obviously, there's a key change here is in the upper, but we'll start with the stuff that's the same in terms of the design of the shoe. The midsole is that big chunk of soft, springy ZoomX foam. This Nike's Piba-based foam that's, amazing and has been part of the reason that these shoes have been so successful in helping people to set PBs and world records. There's a full-length carbon plate in both shoes, obviously, and the outsole is also the same. You're kind of getting a fair bit of rubber at the front there, and then those kind of 2 strips on either side of the back of the shoe. Coming on to the key changes of the shoe, it's the upper. So the original Nike Vaporfly had this vapor weave upper, which was kind of a bit sheer. It kind of repels water a little bit. It was still lightweight. It still felt breathable to me. It tended to bunch up a bit around the front here, like a crisp packet. But yeah, it was a perfectly fine upper, but some people didn't like it that much. It did tend to rub a little bit more at the front than this new upper, I'd say. This is obviously a knitted upper. It's a bit similar to the one on the Alphafly, and there's a reinforced toe section here, which I tend to find has held the material off my toes a bit more than you'd get in the original Vaporfly. And the result is you seem to get like a slightly roomier toe box in general on the Vaporfly NEXT % 2. There's also a little bit more cushioning on the tongue here to try and lessen the kind of pressure from these offset laces when you crank them on race day. And at the back, it looks unchanged. There's the same amount of cushioning on them, but I found that this material perhaps on the original shoe allowed for maybe a slightly tighter hug around my Achilles than on the new shoe, although it could just be because it takes some breaking in the material. It seems a bit stiffer at first. But I have had some heel rub issues on this shoe, which I did not have on the Vaporfly original. But I'll come on to that more on the run test. But I don't think it's a massive problem, but it's maybe something just to look out for. When it comes to the fit, I wore the same size in both shoes, which is my normal size running shoes, a UK size 9. I think there's a little bit more room in the toe box of the Vaporfly 2, perhaps.
So for me, running in the Vaporfly 2 was pretty much like running in the Vaporfly 1. Underfoot, certainly, that midsole and the carbon plate operate in exactly the same way. These shoes make you want to run faster. I definitely think they help you run faster. I did a marathon test in these and I was running, I would say at least sort of 10 or 15 seconds faster than my current level of fitness would allow. I do think that you get the same sensation, though that's all good whilst your sort of fitness is holding together. They both are not so good when you're fatigued towards the end of your run. For the last sort of 5 miles of that run, I was pretty much hanging out my arse and I struggled in them. And then when your form goes, both these shoes sort of operate the same. They're not quite so forgiving as other shoes that you would run in. But essentially, in terms of that overall kind of pop and propulsion and efficiency, everything that the Vaporfly became famous for is here in the Vaporfly 2. So that's all good. The big differences come, probably as Nick has said, with these uppers. Now, the original Vaporfly, that crisp packet upper used to sort of drop down and it just felt a little bit odd on the foot. It didn't really hug as much as these kind of weave uppers that you've now got in the 2s, which I much prefer. You've still got this kind of side lacing. These ribbed laces kind of do help you sort of lock those laces tight and in place. But I found with these, you have to really work quite hard with the 2s to make sure that you've got that lacing done correctly from the off. I did have to stop and adjust these sort of a couple of times when I was doing my interval sessions, and before I went out and did the marathon test, I would make sure that I've done a little bit of a warm-up to make sure I've got the foot in the right place. Now, other than that, the uppers, it's just one of those things, they just sort of disappeared and I wasn't aware of them. That's great. So you're getting this kind of great propulsion, great efficiency, and then you're kind of unaware of them on the run. That's pretty much the same with the Vaporfly 1, but I do think it's ever so slightly better on the 2s here. One thing that I do think has changed here is the heel on the design here. It's got this little sort of cut, it rises up at the back here, and you've got this little sort of folding flap that you don't have on this original Vaporfly. There is a little bit of material here, but not the same. And I'm pretty sure that this rises up slightly higher. And on my marathon test, I did find that this had sort of caused a little bit of rubbing and blistering towards the end of my run. I was aware of that, and that is a difference. I don't know whether that's a problem everyone's going to have. I did feel like I had my foot fairly well locked down, but maybe there was a little bit of movement. I couldn't quite tell if this was sort of rolling over and then sort of just rubbing against the edge of my just below the bottom of my Achilles. So I'm not really sure. That might be something. I never got that on the original Vaporfly, so that is something that I've had on the 2.
Comes to running in the shoes, I've done a lot of running in the Vaporfly NEXT original. It was my kind of go-to race shoe for a long time until the Alphafly came out. I set a half marathon PB in the shoe. I ran my best marathon in this shoe, the Loch Ness Marathon. I also ran my 5k PB in it last year. I think it's a very versatile, fast racer that, when it was legal, was also my go-to track racing shoe. And now you can't use it, the stack is too high. But yeah, it's a brilliant shoe, performs fantastically well. I think probably don't need to go on too long about the ride of the Vaporfly, which is the same in both shoes, but it's very soft when you're kind of cruising along. It's protective, but it's also fast, propulsive, especially when you start to move through the gears, that you can really start to feel the plate starting to give you that extra bit of a kick. And I think it's a shoe that performs fantastically for all runners. Like I say, I'm a heel striker, sub 230 marathoner, but I know lots of people who are forefoot runners of all speeds, midfoot runners, who all love the Vaporfly. It just seems to be a ride that performs really well for everyone. I've done a few 100k in this shoe, and it's always been brilliant. This new shoe, I've kind of obviously done less in. I just rattled through a few runs in it. I kind of used it for my last few key sessions before a marathon I ran at the weekend. Did kind of a 16k in it, alternating 4 minutes per k and 3:30 per k pace. Did some short stuff, running kind of 60 seconds on, 30 seconds off in another session. It's performed exactly the same in terms of the underfoot feel. Like I say, it's really great for holding a good race pace for like a marathon or a half, but when you really want to turn it up for sprints or even like a 5k race, also brilliant. The new upper I've liked generally at the front in particular. I think it disappears on the foot quite nicely at the front, and on the first 2 runs I had nothing negative to say about it. I did use it for kind of 3 runs in 4 days of decent length, done about 50k in it, and I did start to get some rubbing at the heel, like it rubbed my right heel a little bit raw. Had to manage it quite carefully for the marathon as a result. Like, I wouldn't be using the shoe in this way if I owned it, so I'm not sure it's a huge problem. Like, I would use it maybe just for key races, the odd key session, and if I was doing that, I really wouldn't have any fears about heel rub. Maybe try and get a tighter fit from the laces. This doesn't hug quite as close as it does on the Vaporfly original, I think, because the material is a bit stiffer on this shoe. But I wouldn't say don't get this shoe because of that, or it's a worse shoe because of that. Like I say, if you're using it just for the odd run and your key race, I don't think the heel rub will be a big problem.
I would say that there's very little to choose between these 2 shoes. I prefer the uppers in this, so if I had a choice, if I was spending my own money, I'd go out and buy the Vaporfly 2 over the Vaporfly 1 if I could get my hands on them. If you can't get your hands on the Vaporfly 2, or you can find the Vaporfly 1 cheaper, or there's more availability, then I think you're going to get a very similar run out of these 2 shoes without sort of taking into account that sort of slight change in the upper. But when your head's down and you're hammering out the pace at a marathon, I don't think you're going to notice that, to be honest, too much. So the truth is, you could actually probably stick one of these Vaporfly 2s on your right foot, stick a Vaporfly 1 on your left foot and go and run a marathon. You wouldn't really notice too much difference. It's not going to make a huge amount of difference. So I think you could buy either and be happy. If I had a choice, I would be going with the 2.
So verdict to me is relatively simple on this. It's cheaper, this new shoe, and it performs just as well underfoot. I would be buying the Vaporfly 2. You're saving a bit of money, and I think actually at the front, the upper is an improvement all round on the shoe. Like, it's a bit roomier, a bit more comfortable, disappears on the foot nicely. I like the new laces, which are now ribbed and quite easy to tighten up quite a lot. This heel, slight concern on the heel. I'm going to say, like, it's something to consider when you are putting on the shoe and making sure you get a close fit. I never even thought about it with this shoe, but I don't expect it to be a long-term issue. And if you are buying the shoe to use just for key sessions and races, I'm not going to worry about it. Basically, I'd still be getting this shoe. It's cheaper and the performance is just as good. That's it, guys. That is our comparison of the 2 Vaporfly NEXT percents. Have you used both shoes? Have you used one of them? Let us know in the comments what you think of them. Whether you're a Nike runner in general when it comes to carbon shoes, or have you moved to a different brand. Please like, subscribe, ring the little bell so you get notified when we do another video. And yeah, that's it. We'll see you next time. Thanks very much.